Hey, Kevin here, Mr. DIY Dork from DIYDork.com. Today I'm going to show you how we are building the really simple kind of modern style porch in front of our house. So check this out. Alright, so as you can see, the porch is up. What happened was last night we were running out of daylight, so we just had to get this thing up before it got dark. But I'll explain what we did. Last time you saw the porch frame, it was framed out and ready to go. We just had to install it. So as you saw earlier in the video, I had already pre-marked where all the lag bolts were going to go. So what we did is me and my wife just got up on the scaffolding and we held it up in place. We already had lines marked. Hopefully you can see the layout line right there shining that just meets the edge of that. I also had already pre-measured where the top of the ledger board was going to sit, so that way when we're standing up there we could just line up to that corner and that corner, and it was going to, you know, fit fine. So then we ran the lag bolts in there, and I just used 4-inch lag bolts. That way it could go through this board, it could go through the siding, and then hit the studs inside the wall of the house. And it actually held up fine with just the 4 lag bolts, enough for us to build arms. And that's because this red cedar is actually pretty lightweight, so it was not very heavy at all. Okay, now for the arms that are supporting the sides. I don't think I showed those to you at all, but what I did is I just cut a 2x6 that was 8 foot long. I cut it in half to 48 inches. And then we actually, well, first of all, you probably can kind of tell that it tapers a little bit, and what we did was up top we kept it at a 2x6. You can kind of see it up there, it's still 2x6, but by the time it tapers down the wall I made it 2x4. Thought that'd be kind of an interesting little design detail that is not super noticeable unless you're really looking at it and then you're trying to figure out what's going on, and I think it's kind of interesting. But anyway, like I said, we cut it at 48 inches and then we just held it up till we kind of like the angle, and then we just basically drew a line up top and cut it so that it's flush with the top of the framing, and then we just held it against the wall, and of course it's going to kind of jut out like this. We just had to draw a line that was parallel to the wall so that it would suck down to the wall, and then of course this scooted back a couple inches, and then all we did is we lag bolted it. For this lag bolt, it's a big one, it's the biggest one I could find. It was 6 inches, so I just drilled a hole up through here till it hit the wall, and then drove the 6-inch lag bolt to hold it really tight. And then for the arms up there, you probably can just barely make it out, but we just have 3 2.5-inch screws holding it up, and I think that will be fine. This whole thing is pretty lightweight. All we got to do now is put some 1x4s up to, or it might even be 1x3s, I'm trying to remember now, but we're going to put some 1x3s going across on the very top, and then the metal's going to sit on top of that. So it's going to be super lightweight and should work out great. But before we can move on to any of that, we actually have to finish doing siding and trim and all that. So we'll get that up first, and then I'll show you how to finish up this porch roof. Alright, so now that all the roof is up and it's secured to the wall, we've been planning out some J-channel and everything, but also real important is to have this flashing up so that any water that runs off the wall of the house will then just roll right over the roof instead of going behind. So I'm using this end wall flashing here, and it's only 10 foot and our piece here happens to be 11 feet, so we have to add a little overlap here. So I just laid some caulk, and we're going to nail it up, just a piece that's going to overlap a little bit away from the prevailing winds, which we think is coming from this direction, and just put it up, and we're just nailing it at every stud. Also, I should mention these are the 1x3s. We're going to put several of these across, but I went ahead and put this one up because there's no way we're going to be able to nail it once this thing's all the way up. So we're going to have that up, and then we'll side it, and then I'll show you the rest of the roof later. Right now all the metal is up on the house, and as you can see we even have it up above that little piece of flashing we did earlier. There's the little bit of overlay there at about 8 inches or so, just to be sure that water doesn't get in there. And then now you can see what I'm talking about. We have these little strips up here. I guess you could call them furring strips or whatever, and all we did was we just screwed them in at every one of these little braces or studs or whatever, and then that's it. From underneath you're going to see all the exposed wood, and then we're going to put corrugated metal on top. So we're just about to measure and cut all that out, and hopefully we'll have enough daylight to be able to do that and show that to you. Also, you can probably tell that the wood back there looks a lot richer, and that's because we've been rubbing some oil on it. So we're just going to oil the wood and help protect it a little bit better. You can kind of see here how we did the top and not the sides. So we're just going to get the a little bit of oil on here and then start running the metal, and hopefully I can show you what it looks like with the metal up here. so here is the porch all finished, and again, last night we ran out of light, and then a really crazy storm blew in. Hopefully you can hear me now with all the wind, and blew in. It was raining and all that, so we had to get the roof up. So I had to do that before I could really show you on video. But first of all, you can just kind of see how the cedar now looks with all the oil on there. Turned out really cool. And then of course the galvanized roofing, and I want to show you a little bit about that, how we installed it and what we used and why it's just going to be temporary right now. So let me show that to you next. Okay, so here's a little bit of leftover galvanized metal that we used. It has a 1/2 inch sine wave to it, so it's only 1/2 inch thick, and this is 31 gauge. This is super thin stuff, and I would definitely not recommend using this for anything permanent. Maybe for a shed or something like that, or like we're doing here, just a temporary roof until the spring when we can put a real one on there. But we're gonna eventually in the spring, we're gonna use the same thing. We're gonna put Galvalume, which this is galvanized and it looks more, you know, metallic, like a piece of conduit. And the Galvalume is the same thing, but it's clear coated, so it has more of like a shiny aluminum look, almost like this ladder. See how there's how the galvanized is a little bit darker than the other? So we're gonna go for the brighter. And then also, like I said, it's 31 gauge, it's super thin. We're gonna get a lot heavier roofing material, probably like a 24 or 26 gauge. But this is, you know, kind of gives us an idea of what we're gonna be using permanently. Okay, so to figure it out, what we did, oh, and by the way, we bought these in 12-foot lengths so that we could cut at least 2 pieces off of them, but we weren't exactly sure how long to go. So what we did was, underneath you can kind of just see the flashing up there. We shot the tape measure all the way till it hit the wall, and then we come to the end of the wood. It ended up being 48.5 inches. So we decided that we wanted a 1-inch overhang, so we actually cut the piece of metal at 49.5 inches. Okay, then when we actually put it up there, we hung it over 1 inch this way, and then as they went down, we just made sure to end, you know, an inch on the other side. One thing I probably recommend doing is to not make it that exact measurement, because some of them were a little off. I guess the wall kind of bowed out or whatever. So kind of like when we were doing J channel on the siding, if you've seen that video, we gave everything about a 1/4 inch wiggle room. So even though we cut them at 49.5, probably should have done it about 49.25. So now let me go up there and I'll show you how we installed it, and I'll show you something that I haven't done yet, but it probably should do. All right, so here's the roof installed. I think it looks pretty cool, but as you can see, there's a couple of issues over here that I didn't think about when we were putting this thin roof on, but I'll explain that here in just a second. So what we did to attach it is we used these little 3/4 inch pole barn screws. Now they worked okay, but I think I like the screws we used on the house better because the washers are thicker. See that little skinny black washer? That's just not very thick for this little tiny valley in between all the roofing here. So I think when we put the real roof on, I'm gonna go ahead and order a lot better screws. These will work for now. Okay, so when we installed it, what we did was we overlapped it by 2 waves. You can see right here, they overlap by 2. Now the problem I had is that I was thinking of how we're gonna install our real roof, which is gonna have, instead of this wave only being a 1/2 inch tall, we're gonna get ones that are only 1 inch tall. Also, from peak to peak on this one, it's only about 1.5 inches, and on the real roofing, we're gonna get 2.5 inches. So it's gonna be, you know, a lot steeper and a lot bigger ridges for the screws to sit in. So this is the way you install the thicker roof, and for the skinny roof, it really probably should have went through the peak here so that there's not these flaps. You can see the lines here. And the other thing is that when you install it, you really should put butyl tape underneath. And what you do is it would be underneath like this flap right here where the top one meets, and you'd put it on the ridge of the bottom piece of metal there, and then you'd stick it down, and then you put your screw in there. And the butyl tape is basically like flattened out caulk. It comes on a roll, and you just stick it down, you know, and it would help seal water from, you know, like if water would blow really hard, it might go through there, but then again, it would have to go through 2 of these before it ever leaks. So I think it's fine. As you can see, last night it rained and it held up just fine. But anyway, it turned out really simple. Pretty cool. Oh, also, I should mention the screwing pattern. You can probably see we just skipped every few. I think we skipped every 3 and put one in. And you can see, it might be kind of hard, but there's one there, and then there's one right up there. That's because we screwed them into the purlins. And that's also why I only used 3/4 inch screws, just so that they wouldn't poke through in the bottom there. But anyway, it turned out really cool. A very simple project. And I think it's going to look really cool, this barn house. Alright, so I just wanted to show you the porch now that it's all finished. And I also wanted to show one reinforcement that I'm going to do. Alright, right up here. When I built the porch, remember seeing it on the ground, when I screwed the ledger board into these little support boards, and I even did on the front, I just put in 2 screws. But the problem is that I just put them straight into the end grain of these support boards, and that's probably not the best idea over time. It could work loose. So what I think I'm going to do to help fix that is I'm going to run some toenail screws, probably on both sides of the support into the ledger board, and do it on all of them, and that should help suck it up and hold it strong. But other than that, it's been a really awesome porch. We finished up the siding next to it. It's just some pine car siding with a little bit of stain to help match the color of the redwood up there, and then it was also oiled, and it turned out awesome. Got the light installed. We were still going to paint the door later, but otherwise it turned into a really cool little porch. We've got a lot of compliments from it, and it's held up great. It hasn't leaked or anything. And come spring or summer, when we do the real roof on the house, we're going to also replace the roof on this, just so it's something a little more permanent. But it turned out really cool. Simple little project, didn't take much time, and for a first time project, I think it turned out really awesome.